What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Us versus Them YouTube channel. My name is Vince. I'm your host. These are the best UFC picks you can get. I do think that we have the absolute best ones. Each week, we're going to break down the UFC fights for the upcoming week. I'll break down 3 fights every day until we get through the whole card. On Friday, what we'll do is I'll give you 2 official parlays for the week. You can tail those parlays if you want, or you can do any other picks that we do throughout the week. Saturday, we're going to watch the fights. And Sunday, we're going to meet back here for a recap. And we're basically just going to count our money that day and see how much we stole from Vegas. Every fight that I do, even though I'm going to give an official prediction for every single fight, a money line prediction, and a method of victory for prediction. You can use those fights, you can use those money lines, you can use whatever. At the end of every single week, I'm going to give you about 2 parlays or 3 or 4 fights. Super realistic, but the expectation is for high profit. The highest profit margins you'll see. So you can bet a reasonable amount. $10, $15, and still turn it into lots and lots of money, hundreds of dollars and even more. We're going to look at the first 3 fights on the UFC on ABC card, Whittaker versus the Ritter. The first 3 fights are Martin Buday versus Marcus Buchecha, Muhammad Yahya versus Stephen Nguyen. I don't know the predictions or pronunciations. And Ibo Aslan versus Billy Elikana. Let's get into it. Martin Buday comes in the UFC with comes into this fight with a 15-2 record. He actually has a 6-1 record in the UFC, but his biggest win is against Andrei Arlovsky. He comes from a pretty weak schedule for the UFC, even for the heavyweight division. So I wouldn't look too far into that 6-1 record. He fought Lucas Brzeski, who just fought last weekend, and got a split decision win over him. When I was looking through that fight, honestly, I had it 2-1 the other way. I thought Brzeski won that one, so it seemed like a robbery to me. And that win is just not aging well, or loss, however you look at it. It's just not aging well. Brzeski just lost last weekend. He's 9-8, I think, or something like that. So he's probably going to get cut from the organization. So he has a win over him. He's got a win over Jake Collier. When I was watching through that fight too, it was super competitive, that fight. Collier gets on top early, finishes on top for most of the first round. Comes out super aggressive, and Martin Buday seemed like he was just accepting bottom position. He ended up beating Collier in a competitive fight, but Collier is not really UFC caliber. He's been since cut from the organization, is fighting regionally, so it's not really a strong win. When he fought somebody that was actually tough, he fought Shamil Gaziev. Shamil Gaziev was a problem, and when he came across him, he kind of got snuffed out of the fight early. Martin Buday did. Gaziev really took him out of the fight early on. It seemed like Buday was kind of thrown in the towel early. He got in trouble late in the first round, almost got finished. Second round starts, and Gaziev picks up right where he leaves off and finishes him in round 2. So that's the only opposition that he really had, and he got ran through. Marcus Buchecha is coming to the UFC from 1 championship. He's going to be making his UFC debut. He has a strong jiu-jitsu background, but his striking is virtually non-existent. I watched this fight with Rugrug. I don't know if that's how you say his name, but that's what we're going with. In the 1 championship, and he looked completely lost on the stand-up. Rugrug is a big power puncher. He's a big muscular guy, but he doesn't throw a lot of combinations. It's a lot of 1 strike at a time. So for Buchecha to be getting outstruck by him is not a good look. Buchecha actually did try to pull guard early in that fight, and it's just because the striking just wasn't working. As the fight went on, it seemed like Rugrug was getting tired, getting out of it, but he still was able to get a decision win over Buchecha, so that's not really a good look, to be honest with you. So I'm looking at these 2 guys. I'm looking at a very much a classic striker versus grappler match. Both guys have big holes. Both guys are super beatable, but when you're looking at it, what I think is who has the biggest liability. And when I'm looking at Buday's grappling, I think his grappling is the biggest liability. I think his grappling is Buday. So I do think that Buchecha is gonna get the submission on this one. I really like the submission prop, but the ground and pound prop is also live if you want to run that one. But my official pick for that one is Buchecha by submission. The second fight we're gonna get into is Muhammad Yahya versus Stephen Nguyen. Again, I don't know how to pronounce his name, so we're just gonna run with it. But Muhammad Yahya is coming into this fight. He's 0-2 in the UFC. He's got a decision loss to Trevor Peek, and he was also knocked out by Kai Fernandez. that actually is not a bad loss there because Kai Fernandez has since beat Gutalava, however you say his name. You guys know what I'm talking about. That dude's tough. For not, when I was looking at the Trevor Peek fight with Yaya, I was looking at a guy that seemed like he was getting outstruck and out-grappled. You saw that there was limited paths to victory, and it almost seems like he was throwing in the towel. I also kind of felt that way with the Kai Fernandez fight. He wasn't landing early, and it seemed like it started to frustrate him a little bit. You couldn't really see it too much, but Kai Fernandez, I think, noticed it, and that's when he started dropping his hands. He started styling on him a little bit, and he ended up finding the KO in round 1. Stephen Nguyen is coming into this fight 0-1 in the organization and 2-1 on Dana White's Contender Series. It took him 3 fights to get signed to the UFC from the Contender Series because he doesn't have an exciting style fighting. He stays very disciplined in his striking, and he doesn't seem like he wants to extend his combo, or it seems like he's playing it safe, and instead of extending combos, he's hitting guys with 1-2s and things like that. He's got nice striking, don't get me wrong, but he just doesn't seem like he puts he can put a little bit more on the combos and get guys out of there sooner, or actually just finish fights. When I was watching this fight with Jarno Aarons, Aarons is 1-3. He's 1-3 in the organization, and he's since been cut. And it seemed like it was the same thing with Stephen Nguyen. He comes in with a disciplined game plan, with striking, limited output, and he's just going to live or die by the sword. When I look at both these guys together, both these guys honestly are kind of lower level dudes in the organization for 145 pounds. Muhammad Yahya is dropping down to 145 pounds from 155, but I really don't see that being an advantage for him here. Obviously, he's going to lose a little bit of power in the weight cut. His chin's going to suffer a little bit with the weight cut, and I think there's going to be a lighter man skill at play because Stephen Nguyen's striking is pretty slick. Both dudes seem to lack like a killer instinct. It seems like Yahya, if he faces any type of adversity in a fight, he starts to check out a little bit. Stephen Nguyen won't check out of a fight, but he doesn't, like I said, he doesn't add a lot to his combinations. He doesn't look to mix in with wrestling. Grappling won't be a factor in this fight because neither guy looks to wrestle or to get takedowns. When I look at the stories of both these fighters, I see Stephen Nguyen, who can handle adversity a little better. He can walk forward when the fight isn't going his way and still try to find some success. Muhammad Yahya seems like a guy that if you snuff the fight out of him a little bit early, give him some adversity, it will take the fight out of him a little bit. When I look at both these guys, I'm looking at a fight where the loser is probably going to get cut from the organization. So when I think about that and I look at how they carry themselves and their body language, I think who is going to accept losing more likely? And I do think the realistic pick here is that Muhammad Yahya is going to accept losing more so than Stephen Nguyen. Stephen Nguyen shows grittiness with 3 attempts to get in the UFC, going through the Contender Series. I think that does show a little bit of grittiness. And I also look at Yahya. When I look at him, it seems like he almost has accomplished his goal by fighting in the UFC. So I think that he will be more accepting to lose the fight, and he will be more accepting to get cut after the fight is over. So my official pick is Stephen Nguyen by decision. The last fight we're going to look at is Ibo Aslan versus Billy Elikana. Ibo Aslan he's coming in this fight 14-2 and 2-1 in the UFC. All 14 wins come from knockout. This dude is a power puncher. One of his best wins from the UFC is against a guy named Anton Turkalaj. Again, you don't come in here for my pronunciations, you're coming here for my predictions. But I think that's a really underrated win. I think Turkalaj, he's 0-4 in the organization, but if you go through and look at the fighters he's fought a lot of the tougher dudes, some of the toughest dudes at heavyweight and 205. I kind of wish they would bring the guy back, but I don't make that call. It was a super competitive fight. A lot of brawling. They were just kind of both sitting in the pocket and willing to trade. Super fun to watch. If you never watched it, you should go back and watch that one. It's a fun fight to watch. But when I was watching and doing my unofficial scorecards for sure, I had Ibo Aslan down 2 rounds to 0 going into the third. They stood in the pocket in the round 3, and Ibo Aslan, his power does transfer over later into the fight, and he was able to connect with him. And he sat him down and finished him with some ground and pound and put him out. So it's good to see a guy that can finish a big power puncher with those big muscles, and he's able to still carry that power late into the fight. When you look at his fight with Ion Cutelaba, it did show that he does have a grappling hole, but I don't think that'll play a factor in this fight. Billy Elikana is 0-1 in the organization. He lost to Bogdan Guskov. He actually did fight really well in that fight and won the first round for sure. He came out very aggressive, gets a single leg, dumps him down, super aggressive. Not the most technical, but it definitely worked. And he finishes on top. And he doesn't do a lot of damage or any work on top at all, but he does finish the round with, I think there was like 15 seconds left or something like that, and Guskov got out, but he definitely secured the round for sure. But, you know, he took that fight on short notice, and he started fading in round 2, and Guskov realized that. Guskov starts putting pressure on him with striking, and Elikana just literally takes a knee, and the ref could have stopped it then. Guskov jumped on his neck and gets the guillotine and submits him. When you look back at his pre-UFC career, I watched a fight that he had with a dude named Chuck Campbell in the PFL. Chuck Campbell was 39 years old going into that fight, and he's tough for sure. That guy's tough. But he's 39 years old, and he wasn't the most technical fighter. His grappling wasn't very good, and he seemed like he was starting to fade as any 39-year-old would in a fight. He started fading, and Elikana wasn't able to get him out of there. Actually, it was a super competitive fight. It ended up being a split decision, and when I rewatched it, I could see why, because you can make cases for either guy for every single round. When I look at a guy like that, and I know MMA math doesn't always work, but when I look at a fighter like Chuck Campbell, I think that he is a younger, smaller, less technical, not as big version of Ibo Aslan. So when I look at this fight, it definitely feels like Billy Elikana seems like a sacrificial lamb almost. He's going to be younger, or he's going to be smaller. He's going to have a power disadvantage. I think he'll even have a grappling disadvantage. So I just don't see a lot of paths to victory for Elikana outside of just catching him in a wild brawl. But even that favors Ibo Aslan. I think the prediction here is Ibo Aslan by knockout. But obviously, I'm not really going out on a limb on this prediction. He's got 14 wins, 14 knockouts. I'm not really going on a prediction. So the fighter line, for the fighter prop for that, might not be great. This is not my official prediction yet. We'll wait until Friday for this one, as far as what goes in the parlay or whatever. But I do see a lot of value in a round 2 KO. Betting that prop instead of just a knockout prop, I see a lot of value in that because Billy Elikana is tough, and he's durable. He will stay in the fight. I don't think he's going to lay down for him. So the round 2 KO prop is probably more live, but my official prediction is Ibo Aslan by knockout. So that's my predictions for the first 3 fights for the UFC event this weekend. Whittaker versus the Ritter. I'm going to continue to do my research and get you a couple more or 3 more fights tomorrow. But definitely stay tuned throughout the week because I see some dogs that are barking for sure. There's some big money that can be made this week. So definitely stay tuned. If you like any of the predictions, drop a comment below. Otherwise, I'm going to see you guys tomorrow. I'm out.